Welcome to the PinLeader Podcast, where strategic leaders get straight to the topics, strengthening our awareness and sharpening our minds. The PinLeader Podcast is produced by Roar, a production division of Mays & Associates Ltd. Find out more at www.maysassociatesltd.com. Now here is your award-winning host, Dr. Shanda Gore.
And welcome back to the PinLeader Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the fire within, and I am glad to have two individuals who have been leaders in their field and are also helping others learn about leadership and to explore their passions, and they're doing it through writing. So how they're actually taking those experiences and turning it into the next phase of a writing career and being an author. So I have with me Mr. Peris Edwards, who is a Toledo firefighter and paramedic for 10 years. He has a bachelor's degree in social work and minor in coaching from Miami University, as well as being a football player on scholarship there. He's a real estate investor with his wife and business partner for Peris Management LLC, and he's a published author and motivational speaker, and we're going to hear more about his book. I also have with me today Mr. Derek Brown, who is actually a veteran, served in the Army, and he served as 30 years as a paramedic and firefighter. And he has been married for 21 years, and I know he's in business with his wife as well. And he's written a wonderful book of poetry. So I'm so glad to have both of you here. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Excellent. So I'm going to start with you, Derek. Again, you just retired from being a firefighter. And you've written a book, of poetry. Is that right?
That is correct.
So tell me, what motivated you to do it? How did you tap into who you are to write that book?
Well, I've always written poetry. I had a lot of poetry just sitting around the house. So my friends and my family would say, like, man, that was a good poem, because I would always bounce it off of people. Say, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And eventually, I had so many, they was like, you should put a book together, put all your poems together. So that's what I did.
So you were inspired by the poetry that you read, and then you tapped into that. Your experiences, what do you write about?
It wasn't necessarily a poem that I read that got me going. It was just life experiences, or somehow how something that it will impact me that I see or hear. Then if it hits me a certain way, then I feel like I want to write about it. Mm-hmm. So I express that in the poem.
Excellent. Now, I understand you two have written, and you write quite a bit every day. Is that right, Peris? You got a book called 365 Days of Happiness. I just love that title.
Thank you.
I love that title. Can you talk about your experience and how you've tapped that to write the book?
Yes. I kind of knew I had a talent to write in high school. I had an English teacher who kind of planted that seed that I was a good writer. And it wasn't until after college, after pursuing the NFL, and that didn't work out, I kind of went to writing as a kind of a therapy. And then once I realized that could help other people, which is my passion, helping people, the writing is just a talent. I think once you bring your passion, and your talent together, that's your blessing to be a blessing to others and serve the world. So that's kind of how it stemmed. And the whole point of 365 Days of Happiness is how you respond to life, not exactly how it always happens to you.
I think that's really important, especially with the experiences and what you saw out there. Firefighting, being a paramedic, understanding, unfortunately, seeing the worst of life or death in some circumstances. How do you separate that to be able to write a book that talks about happiness?
With work, that's the thing. Like, I think that this job, you stated, allows us to see things that most people don't. But I think that the job at some point will allow you to need a relief valve. So, whatever that is for that person when you're off duty, you need a relief valve. Writing is kind of relief valve for me, and it allows me to connect with people on that level and become more empathetic for people and just genuinely try to help and serve other people.
Now I'm going to ask you, Derek, you're got poetry, so that's a little bit different in a writing style. How did you know, again, with poetry because that's a different approach, what inspires you, and does it come to you naturally? Did you get it from the job? How did you just start writing poetry?
Well, actually, it does come to me naturally. We had spoke before where I said that I could be in my bed in the middle of the night and the poem could just come to me if it's something that's been on my mind. So it really just comes to me. Just have to write it.
So this sounds like it's a way of being able to communicate, like maybe something you've seen or something that's really set in your heart that you need to communicate out to. And is that what you found?
Well, absolutely. Things could hit me in a positive way or even in a negative way. And I express it on which way it hits me. But I will also, if I write something negative about a certain topic, I can also put myself on the other side of it. And I could write a poem just as detailed and passionate as I can for the opposing side. You know, I could hit both sides of it.
So how does that impact leadership? For example, for leaders out there that might be listening and are thinking about, well, I might be able to write a book, or maybe I should write a book, or I'm not sure what I should write about. What advice would you give to someone who's thinking about, again, tapping energy or at least reflecting back out what they're thinking or they're feeling in that process? And now, Peris, what do you think?
I think if you have an interest in writing and you want to pair that with leadership, first you got to write for yourself. You got to put yourself in a little solitude and write for yourself and be vulnerable. I think it's the key. I think that's one of the first steps in leadership. You have to be vulnerable and show that you're not perfect and show that you have positive and negative feelings and be open to that aspect. But as far as writing, it's really not complex. You just need to sit down with your thoughts. Don't overthink it. Let it flow. We're just the medium, and you just put down the words and you just write. I write every day. I write every single day. That could be something small from a couple sentences to 5 chapters for a book. But I write every single day, and it keeps me humble, keeps me filled with gratitude, and you just got to work on your craft.
Yeah, I would say I totally agree. People who are writing more, they write best because they're writing more, and it's in a process. Now, Derek, it sounds like you do the same thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can totally relate to what Peris is saying. I could write a little or I could write a lot. And a lot of times I'll sit and just think, because I also write other stuff besides poems. And I'll just sit and think what the story that I'm trying to tell or portray. I'll just sit there and just think about it. Just no writing, just think about where I want to go with it and what I'm trying to say. So there's a lot of time for reflecting prior to me writing also. It's not just all instinctive. Just go. So.
Mm-hmm. So what are you reading? And I normally get to this question later, but what are you reading that encourages you to write more? Peris, what are you reading?
I'm a big self-help biography. I throw finance in there. The last book I read was Dr. Gore's book about leadership.
Oh.
Anything that can improve my life and the life of others. I have a unquenchable hunger for thirst and knowledge and education. Like you said, I got my bachelor's in social work in 2010, but I feel like I have gotten a doctorate in life by just being a reader. So I am always hungry for reading. If I think I'm gonna finish a book today, if I'm going to work, I have to grab another book. I am always devouring books and just looking for inspiration, not only for myself, but for others to share information. I also have a passion to just share information that people may not, whether they don't read or whether they don't have access to that. I just love sharing information and building relationship off just maybe off a book I read or something I experienced. So I'm absolutely passionate about reading.
Derek, I would think that you're probably the same way, but what are you reading? What inspires, or what are you watching?
Well, my reading has dialed down a lot because I've been writing so much. So I really haven't been reading a whole lot. My father originally got me into reading into fantasy books. That's what he got me going in. And so I've been reading ever since. And I read those things. But as Peris stated, it's life. I'm 60 years old. I've seen a lot. And I've experienced a lot and been through some stuff. And that's the stuff I write about. And that's what gets me going. So, being as old as I am, I just seen a lot of scenarios, good and bad. As they affect me and alter your life, I write about it.
So because you both are firefighters, one retired and one who's currently on the line, how or what do you see as a way for other firefighters if they're thinking about an outlet to do? And some people do it through sports or activities. But if they wanted to pick up writing to kind of like get some of the thoughts, unfortunately made good or bad, out of their heads, how would they go about doing writing, and what would you suggest and make a recommendation? I'm going to start actually with Derek because I know you've been doing poetry for a long time and you've been now writing in other areas. So what would you suggest that they do?
Well, again, like Peris said, write what you feel. So a lot of times they tell us in the field that me and Peris has both been in, you got to have an outlet. You see a lot of stuff. So you got to have an outlet. And you heard that he works out, I work out. He write, I write. But it could be something else that you get your outlet in. But if it pertaining to writing, write what you feel. If you want to express it in poetry, then do that. If you want to express it, just talk about how it made you feel and how it hurt your heart, speak on it. Get it out. Because if you let it build, it could just manifest in some things and some habits that you don't want to get into. So,
yeah, unfortunately, there's a higher rate of mental health crisis that happens, police and fire, and because of what you've been exposed to. And so getting that ability to write it out and get it out, that's a really good piece of advice right there, is just to start. Peris, what would you suggest?
I agree with everything Derek said. I read a Stephen King book called On Writing when I was in the process of writing my book. And honestly, the selfish side of me always wants to read. The selfless side of me always wants to write and share once I felt brave enough to share my writings. But in that book, he said something that will always stick with me. He said, write drunk, revise sober. And when I write my inspirational quotes in the morning, and there's also stuff I write in the morning that I don't share, but there's stuff that I write in the morning that I do share. And if you go look at my writings, a lot of them are run-on sentences, sometimes broken up poetry, but I don't care. I just write. I'm past the point of, I think all artists are sensitive about their material, but I'm past the point of caring about how people feel about it, because I know when I post it, it's going to help someone. So I don't care about a comma in the wrong spot. I don't care about a run-on sentence. I don't care about that unless I'm literally putting it in a book. So what Derek said, write what you feel. And when you start off trying to write, just write for you. You don't have to share your writings. Nothing says you have to share your writings. If you want to write, especially from a therapeutic standpoint, in a field like we're in, you just write thoughts. You don't have to write sentences. You can write thoughts, and just start there. Carve out time to go write. I go to the library between 9 and 11. I treat it like my job. I go there and I just write. Will I share some of the stuff? Maybe. If I don't, I don't. But I write, and it's effective for the type of careers that we're in the fire and paramedic service. So just write.
Excellent. So I'm going to ask you, because you're doing so much reading, you're doing so much writing. What are you watching? Is there anything that inspires you that you watch? Peris, what are you watching?
Honestly, Dr. Gore, I don't watch TV. Me and the wife, every now and then, I watch a movie for date night, but I am not a TV person. It's funny, I had another firefighter texting me last night about the March Madness. He was telling me about the game because I don't have cable. He was updating me in the game. So I'll watch movies now and then and again, but I like movies that I can be inspired by. I like TV shows that I can be inspired by. So I'm not a regular TV watcher. I guess that kind of doesn't answer your question.
It does. I mean, you're not watching it.
I really don't watch TV.
You're watching movies. That's all right.
Yes, ma'am.
See, I see it as you're spending quality time with your loved one, and that's what counts.
Yes, ma'am.
That's your downtime. So, yeah. Now, I know, Derek, from what I understand, you are an avid watcher of movies. Is that right?
I am. I watch everything from A to Z. It don't matter if it's written well. It doesn't have like good. If it's good, it's good, and if it's good writing, again, that draws me in. The writing, and so I'll watch anything from A to Z. Doesn't matter. It could be a lot of. It could be violent, non-violent. And it could just be a deep topic, and there's no action whatsoever, but the dialogue is so intense that I just love it. So I watch everything from A to Z.
So I think for those that are listening and are saying, you know what, I want to write, and you both are accomplished authors. You're published, so you've made a choice to actually take your work and let others read it and potentially buy it. Is there any advice for anybody who is thinking about publishing on that side? Because I think you're both self-published. Any advice that you would give them? Derek, I'll start with you.
When you go to put it in a book, then you have to be extremely technical and make sure everything is this and that, and make sure you edit everything. But I really, honestly and truly, I write for myself. I write for myself. And if I put a book out there, or my poems, or when I do these other books, if it's received, it's received. If it's not, it's not. But I know I got a lot of stuff in there where somebody be like, oh my God, I relate to that. I absolutely relate to that. So that's what I do.
And you can find you on Amazon, correct?
Correct.
Peris, what about you? Because I know you've actually done speaking engagements too about your book and signings.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you share about your experience?
Yes, ma'am. I would say the two, if you want to take your writing the serious route as far as being published, I would highly recommend The Green Light. It talks about the differences between self-published and traditional. I tell a lot of people it's very comparable to the music industry. Do you want to be an independent musician, or do you want to get signed to a label the traditional way? Or do you want to be a self-published author, or do you want to go the traditional route? If you go the traditional route, they own your stuff. They can alter it. They can do all these things. The good side to that is they front you the money. They may have more marketing education and things like that. But if you self-publish, you do all the groundwork. You do all the footwork. You put up the money. You do all the marketing, all that stuff. Another book I would highly recommend, as I stated earlier, was Stephen King's On Writing. I'm not a big Stephen King fan because I don't read fiction, but he is one of the greatest authors of all time. So that book, which is nonfiction, allows you to get in his mind and his process of writing. And it doesn't mean you have to do everything that he does, because I don't. But it just lets you know to just follow your passion and don't overcomplicate the process. If you want to write, just write. And then do your research. I mean, we got YouTube University in 2025. There's nothing you can't look up and learn on YouTube. So start writing first. And then, like I said, I would highly recommend the book called The Green Light, comparing traditional to self-publishing. And I would recommend Stephen King's On Writing to help you through that process. And don't over-educate yourself to where it gives you the green light to procrastinate. Look up a couple things, keep writing, and keep the process simple.
Excellent. So with that, I'd like to add just a little bit. If you can't find a good publisher and you don't want to give over your rights on that, and you don't want to do self-publishing, there's always a hybrid model out there too. And that is a cross between getting that national exposure and finding someone who can believe in your book. And also, if you need another pair of eyes, a publicist, proofreading. I know for those that are like, I'm not sure, I still think I can't proofread my own work. Do not hesitate to seek help, because there are a number of places you can get help for that too. So I would stress that, and that's great word. So I can't thank you enough for both of you coming on the show. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Excellent. And thank you to our listeners out there who are sharing the show and liking it. We appreciate you too, and all your different locations around the world and in our local area. I'd also like to thank our sponsor, Jody Zink, from Team EXP Realty, has over 30 years of experience because, quote, where your life happens, it matters. So we appreciate you. And don't forget to pick up the latest issue of the PinLeader Path, which is out at Amazon. #1 Amazon bestseller, actually in the categories of HR and professional development and personnel management. So thank you so very much. And until next time.
The PinLeader Podcast is hosted by Dr. Shanda Gore and brought to you by Mays & Associates Ltd., creating customized solutions for growth in the areas of leadership development, strategic planning, and culture building. Find out more at www.maysassociatesltd.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the PinLeader Podcast and share with others.